Hi everyone, welcome to episode 97 of the XS Noize Podcast. I'm Mark Millar. Thanks for listening. In this episode, I speak to Counting Crows lead singer Adam Duritz. If you missed the previous episode, I spoke to Scottish singer-songwriter Nina Nesbitt about her third studio album, Allscar.
It's interesting because people have always been like, has Scotland influenced your music? And I'm like, I don't think so, because I don't sing in a Scottish accent. I think because ever since I was a kid, I wanted to be Britney Spears. So I've always sung, I guess, subconsciously in a neutral American accent. But now I look back, I'm like, oh my God, yeah, it really does influence my music with the storytelling, walking about Edinburgh and hearing buskers on the street talking about, whatever they're talking about, folk songs in a bar, it's everywhere. So I think actually it has massively influenced me, but just wasn't obvious at first.
So check it out. And if you like the podcast, please subscribe and share it with your friends. If you want up-to-date music news, album reviews and interviews, then check out our main website at xsnoize.com. You can also follow us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. Search for the tag at XS Noize Music. Here's XS Noize writer Daniel Lynch with a taste of what's been on the website this week.
Muse are back with a new album, Will of the People. Michael Barron says that in parts the band are at their best, intense and concentrated on powerful concepts. At other times though, the album is lacking. 7 out of 10. Imelda Heher has been listening to the new album from Stella Donnelly. Imelda says that on Flood, the Australian has soundtracked The Last Days of Summer. Cold is the standout track, 8 out of 10. There's new music streaming on the website from Pulled Apart by Horses, Skinny Living and Arctic Monkeys. And there's news of Ash reissuing their third album on vinyl. Finally, XS Noize was at Gaslight Anthem's final European tour date in Belfast. The New Jersey band is back after an indefinite hiatus and planning a 6th studio album. The mood is optimistic again and the band is clearly gelling on stage, getting fans even more excited for new music. Read the full review with photos from Claire McAllister at xsnoize.com.
Counting Crows have enchanted listeners worldwide for more than 2 decades, with their intensely soulful and intricate take on timeless rock and roll. In this interview, Adam Duritz talks about playing Dublin on their Butter Miracle tour, playing Woodstock 99, the Butter Miracle Sweet One EP, songwriting and lots more. So sit back, relax and enjoy the XS Noize Podcast with Adam Duritz. Hi Adam, welcome to the XS Noize Podcast.
Thank you. I was going to say, I thought you were from Belfast. You got the accent.
Yeah, you can tell.
Well, yeah, I've got Cork on the other end of the house right now. Our tour manager is from Cork, so it's a very different accent than Belfast.
Yeah, it definitely is. It definitely is. Counting Crows will bring the Butter Miracle tour to 3 Arena Dublin in October. Due to the original show was rescheduled due to the pandemic. So, how much are you looking forward to playing in Ireland?
A lot. Especially, we've played there a lot of shows at when it was the Point Depot. Now that it's 3 Arena, it's an old favorite. I'm still depressed. They took the bar out. There was a great bar. Was it called Harry's Bar? I can't remember what it was called. Inside the venue that I loved, and that's gone now. But I love the place. Ireland's always been kind of great for us, because Tom, our tour manager from Cork, there was always family. It was always like, the very first time we went there were so many people that, were there to welcome us because of him, that it's just always been great for us. It always felt like home. Even when we weren't particularly big, the fans we had were so passionate about us, It's just it's always been like a second home. It's nice.
Yeah. And what can fans expect from the shows?
I don't know. It changes every time. We change the set every night, so you can't really be certain of what you're going to see. I'm sure we'll play the Butter Miracle Suite in its entirety. That's all I know for sure.
Yeah, well, talking about the Butter Miracle Suite, you released it last year. It's a 4-track EP. It's absolutely fantastic. It was the band's first new music in 7 years. What took so long?
Well, I think none of us are really sure how to release music these days. I think I felt like we were doing really good work and it was kind of disappearing. I don't think any of us had it really figured out. And so I think I was pretty hesitant to write for a while because we were still touring and playing all the time. We didn't take any of these years off really. Which was just kind of hesitant about writing because, I felt like we didn't know how to release records. But then I started writing the suite and I got so excited about the composition of it that I just did it anyways.
Yeah, you set yourself a challenge to see if you could write a series of different songs that each played seamlessly and flowed together like one long song. So how challenging was that?
But no, I mean, it was definitely difficult, but I mean, it happened. So it can't have been that difficult because we pulled it off. The interesting thing about it was that even though I wrote it to flow together, there was no way to play it that way. And so we didn't really know that it worked until we finished mixing and clipped them together. When we recorded them, we recorded the song separately, but we would play the ending into the next song. Like we would keep playing into like the first few bars of the next song and then stop. So it sounded like it would work, but you never really knew until we were done whether when you clipped them together, they would actually work. I mean, whether it would sound right or whether it would sound terrible and you'd be able to tell the difference, So I had this, I felt like I'd been carrying this idea around in my head for almost a year, and then when we finally, because the pandemic hit us right as we were finishing the first recording sessions, we were about 80% done with the record and we realized we couldn't get back and finish it. So, that there about 4 or 5 months passed after that and we finally finished it. And when we finished mixing the last song, Bobby and the Rat Kings, and we sat there in the room and we cut the 4 songs together and then we listened and it worked. And it was like, oh my God. I don't think I realized until that moment how much tension there had been in me because they all sounded really good, but you still didn't know whether the thing was actually going to work. And when it did, I was just, I've never had that feeling before because, you can hear, songs are separate usually on records and they're good. You could tell that. This was like the whole concept, the whole record was up in the air until the very end. Like never knew whether it worked until it was done, which is crazy. It was a weird experience that way.
Yeah, and it really, really does work. You mentioned Bobby and the Rat Kings. I love that. It's an amazing track. It has vibes of The Who with the Who guitar riff, and obviously a nod to My Generation with the sort of slight stutter.
Yeah. It's funny because when I wrote it, I was thinking The Who. Because when I started it anyways, I don't write a lot of sing-alongs where the audience is joining in. And I don't know that I write a lot of things where they air guitar either, but I was really wanting Baba O'Reilly, big guitar chords. But then it somehow crept into sounding kind of like Springsteen in some places too, which I had not intended at all. But so most of the people that have talked to me in interviews about it picked up on the Springsteen parts, but not a lot of them picked up on the Who parts. So I'm glad you said that because it really was my intention when I started it was like to have this weird sort of like almost dance track with all the Mellotron strings from like Angel of 14th Street come crashing down into Bob O'Reilly, weirdly. So that the thing was like this Mott the Hoople-esque Ziggy elevator boots into this sort of weird psychedelic sort of dance track and then crash down into these big Who-like guitar chords. Like a shocking transfer right there. But everyone just kind of picked up on the Springsteen stuff. I was like, I wish someone would say something about the Who.
Well, there you go. There hasn't been many albums that's been made. I mean, the most famous album I would say that sort of flows right into each other's side too of Abbey Road. Would that have been an inspiration at all?
Oh yeah, definitely. I always loved that. And a few years ago when they had was it the 50th anniversary of Abbey Road or the 40th? Abbey Road Studios had, asked a bunch of different artists to like record a song from Abbey Road. And we asked if we could have a bunch of side 2. So we did Golden Slumbers and To Carry That Weight into the End as one piece that we played live, and we recorded it at Abbey Road for that show live at Abbey Road. And I just thought that was so cool when we did it, like the way those songs work together. And there's been a number of albums like that. Alphabet City, what's the album called? The Prince album that Alphabet City's on works that way. What's Going On? Mark Gaye's record is kind of that way. There are a few. That one side of The Wild, the Innocent, the E Street Shuffle with Incident on 57th Street and Rosalita and New York City Serenade. And I always thought that was really cool. I think it was kind of a natural progression because, like, we've done this stuff in concert for a long time with Round Here, for instance, or Rain King, where we've moved other songs into the middle of that song and then returned to the song. Or, I did it compositionally for the first time with Palisades Park, where we had a song that had several different movements in it. And I think it was kind of a natural progression to do something like Butter Miracle. It just felt like a really cool challenge to do something special. And I would add that it's a completely stupid time to do something like that, because nobody listens to records anymore. They just have their Spotify on shuffle, in which case these songs don't work at all. So I'm glad I finally got around to doing that at a time in music history when no one can possibly hear it this way. But we'll see, except for me and you and 4 other people.
I definitely still do, absolutely. And one of my favorite tracks on the EP is Elevator Boots, about life on the road. It's another fantastic track on there. What can you tell me about the genesis of that song? Well,
that's kind of where the suite was born, because I hadn't written anything in a while, and I was on my friend's farm, and I wanted to play, and I rented a piano, and I wrote The Tall Grass. And the next day I came back to see if it was actually done, and I played it through. And when I got to the end, I started kind of messing around with the end of the song. I changed some of the chords, played some different chords, and then I found myself singing this line, Bobby was a kid from round the town. And I'm like, oh, I like that. That's cool. That's a nice melody in there. Maybe this is a longer song like Palisades Park, where it shifts into another movement here. And so I started working on it, and I realized, oh no, this is actually a different song. But I was really intrigued with the way they flowed together like that. And that's kind of what got me, what if I wrote a whole series of songs that flow like these two do? And that's what kind of got me into the challenge of writing the suite. But I think that like several, music has been in the center of my whole life, from being an obsessive music fan to actually being someone who makes music. And I think on this record, the 2 of the songs look at it from both those perspectives. Elevator Boots is looking at music from the perspective of someone who makes it and who spent his life in it. And Bobby and the Rat Kings is from the perspective of a fan for whom this band is just magic and world creating to him, where he gets lost in their music. And that's kind of both sides of me.
So that EP's been out, it's been out over a year now. When do you have plans to release the second EP, the Suite 2?
Yeah, well, yes and no. I wrote the rest of it. I was back on the farm in June of last year, and I wrote the rest of the suite. While I was over there, I also sang on my friend's album, this band, Gang of Youths, Australian band who live in England now. And then when I got back, David, the singer, sent me an early copy of the record. And I listened to it and I thought, well, A, this is the best record anyone's made in years. It's so good. It's called Angel in Real Time. And B, this new suite's not good enough. I gotta read it. It's like, it just kind of woke me up to, oh yeah, this is a different level. This isn't good enough. I got to step it up. And so I tossed it out. So it'll be delayed because it just made me realize it wasn't, their record was so good. It made me realize that the new songs I'd written weren't good enough.
Going back way to the start, can you remember the first song you wrote and you thought, right, this is a really good song?
Well, I think I thought that about all of them. from the first song I wrote. It just wasn't true. I think, because the first time you make something out of nothing, the idea of creation where there's nothing there and then suddenly there's a song, that's an incredible moment, and I wrote the song when I was a freshman in college, fall term my freshman year. And I was so floored by the act of making a song. And I thought it was an incredible song. And I kept doing it. I obsessively wrote, and wrote and wrote and wrote. And I think as I did it more, I started to realize some of the weaknesses in the songs I was writing. And I think when you start out writing, part of what is good is something you already heard someone else do. Quality is what the other guy has already done. You heard professionals do it. And then you realize after a while, no, that's not quality. That's just copying, and you look to find ways to do your own thing. Not that you don't aim for Baba O'Reilly chords sometimes, but there's derivative and then there's inspired. And I think that Bobby and the Rat Kings is inspired by some stuff that I love. Derivative is a different thing where it doesn't have the inspiration. And I think, when I wrote those first ones, I thought they were brilliant, and it just took me a while to become my own thing. At first, you're just kind of doing what you've seen someone else do before, So I don't think I ever had a moment where I thought, okay, now I wrote a great song, because I thought they were all great. I just realized after a while that, I can look back on them and say, oh, those weren't as good as this, and that's true all the way up till I think our first album. When we make our first album is when I think the first time I was like, these are all great. These are all exactly what I want them to be. These are great songs. I'm not going to look back on these songs and think, oh, that's not that good. And that's kind of true. I could see the weaknesses in everything before our first album. But from the moment we made our first album on, I don't look back on any of those songs and there's none of them that disappoint me.
Yeah,
I mean, not like everything we've recorded on the way it sounds. Only the first album kind of bothers me with some of the sound on it, but the songs are great,
And one of the songs from the album was Mr. Jones. It's your most streamed song on Spotify, and it was all over the radio when it was released. When I hear that song, it brings back great memories, right back to 1993. It reminds me of when I left home for the first time. Why do you think it's just stood the test of time? Why do you think people love that song so much?
I don't know. It's a weird thing about being in a band. There are moments when the culture just comes to you, when you are a formative part of that point in time. And everybody heard you or listened to you and identified that point in their life with a song. And, as well as the fact that Mr. Jones is a song about dreaming. It's about the hollowness of those dreams too. But it's about dreaming of something that you want for your life. And it's about dreaming of something ridiculous, which in my case somehow happened, but it's about dreams. And I think especially when people are young and they're starting their lives, that's all their lives are about. I mean, what else is there in life except for dreaming of what you're going to do with the rest of yours? And I think Mr. Jones captures that pretty well. It captures it in a way that I don't think a lot of people realize, which is that in the song, the guy thinks they're going to make everything good. Dreams coming true will solve everything. And you're supposed to know he's wrong. And so it's about how hollow some of that stuff is. But it's not that you shouldn't dream, you should. That's what it's all about. It's just that, nothing turns out to be everything. But except that the idea of dreaming is everything. That's the only thing that is true about all that. The only thing that really is everything is the idea that you should dream and strive and reach for things and try and hit the moon, It won't be what you think it was going to when you get there. But that's no reason to go through your life not reaching for it. I hear all these people talking about, it's something people say all the time. I don't want to get overexcited about something because I don't want to be disappointed. That always seems like the stupidest thing in the world to me. Fuck it, be disappointed, but always expect everything. Want the moon. Just live with the fact if you don't get it. But why would you ever want to hope for mediocrity and halfway and anything else, Just dream. And I think Mr. Jones captures that. And I think that's why it sticks with people.
You have to go for it. Everything happens for a reason. You know, if you won't know until you try, you know?
Yeah.
That's it. When you're writing songs, what's the most important thing for you? A great lyric or a great melody?
Oh, you need them both. If you don't have them both, you don't really have a song. I mean, for me, you know, maybe I don't always get both, but I always want both. I think that they're equally important. The music, the lyrics. I have never written lyrics first to a song. It always starts with the music, but you need the lyric too. You know, maybe the melody is more important. Maybe, because that's the hook. Sticks in your head. If I had to say it, I guess I'd say that's why Paul McCartney's Paul McCartney. Because he could write 50 things that I can still hum now that he wrote 40, 50 years ago. Maybe more than that. You know, like that's, and you know, the thing about it is, you know, you have your day to draw your lyrics from. You live your life. You have experiences and you can draw your lyrics from that. But a melody, I mean, that's thin air. It comes out of thin air. There's nothing to base it on except for other people's melodies, I guess. You know, and maybe we are all lucky to have Puccini for that. You know, we have Puccini and so we can make pop music. Or Paul McCartney had Puccini and now we have Paul McCartney. I don't know. I'm always sort of mystified by the magic of what a melody is. You know, the fact that like people always say, oh, you know, they want to talk to me about how I write poetry. And I always say, no. I write songs. It's different. I mean, I know what they mean. They want it to be, they mean it as a compliment. And I love poetry, but I don't write poetry because there ain't no music in poetry. You know, and I'm proud of the fact that I can write music too. You know, like somehow, and that's hard because I can't really play any instruments. So I'm plunking it out on the piano, trying to figure it out. It's difficult. I'm a shitty piano player, but I'm good enough to have written these songs somehow. Well, a lot of that is just like I worked at it. You know, every song is hard. I mean, I think they're equally important, but I'm intrigued by the melody thing because it is something from nothing. You know, you create that out of thin air.
Yeah. And Paul McCartney is probably the best person for writing melodies ever.
Yeah, I think so too. It's amazing to me how many pieces of music he wrote that if you just name the song, I can hum it to you.
Yeah.
Because those things are stuck in my head 50 years later. That's unbelievable to me. How many of them he wrote that make me do that, you know? Incredible.
Counting Crows played the controversial Woodstock 99, which is now the subject of a Netflix documentary, Trainwreck Woodstock 1999. What could you remember about playing there at the time?
It was fucking horrible. It was the worst thing I've ever seen. I got asked to be interviewed for all those documentaries, the one on Netflix, the one on HBO. I turned them down just because I'm still so angry about it that I was worried I'd just be ranting on TV. I'll tell you a few things I remember about it. That from the very beginning, it seemed to be an incredibly cynical operation. You know, this idea of Woodstock, but they were holding on an Air Force base because a lot of people snuck into the one before it and the first one. I get that. You want to charge people. It's fine. But I remember like the first day I went there the first night, to see, I think we watched Sheryl Crow play, and I wanted to see P-Funk play that night. And I remember standing backstage. The guys in P-Funk left for their gig. Yeah, they were at the other end of the field. And one of the guys stayed behind because his daughter had walked off somewhere and he's looking for his kid. And so he finally found her. And so he was getting ready to go down to the other end, needed to catch a van to get down there. It's a long way. And he couldn't get a ride. Like they had all these vans taking VIPs to the other end of the park to his show. But they didn't get a car for him for a while. And the only reason he wasn't late to getting the set was because Insane Compost, he had so much shit on stage that it took forever to break it down. And P-Funk went on about 45 minutes late because of it. But I remember watching all these kind of radio people and record company people, VIPs, get rides. And the guy in the band couldn't get one. And when we finally got one together, all of us. And I remember thinking, man, they got their head up their ass about how they're organizing this thing. Because that's a little wrong. And that doesn't seem very Woodstocky to me, you know? And then because they got on stage late, their set ran late. And I remember they turned the power off on George Clinton. Just turned the power off in the middle of a song. And I thought that was so fucking rude. But I also, you know, earlier that day, it was like triage in the front of the show. People were throwing stuff at Cheryl. There was just an endless line of stretchers, injured people coming over the fence and then just being carted away on stretcher after stretcher after stretcher after stretcher. You know, I remember watching this girl get up on her boyfriend's shoulders and then a bunch of people grabbing at her and sort of tearing her clothes off. And the same thing kind of went on when we played. And then, you know, when they asked us to play the show, we said, okay, we'd like to play like around a sunset time. We want to play around sundown. And they said, oh, we can't. We want to have we're booking it so we have only the most aggro bands for the last 2 or 3 bands every night. And I was like, okay, that's their plan. I get that. You know, it's like, the mosh pit thing was really big right then. And so they wanted like the Metallicas, the Limp Bizkits, the Chili Peppers, those kind of bands at the end, Kid Rock, at the end of the day, every day. And that was their plan. So, I mean, and I remember the guy saying it. That was specifically their plan. So Limp Bizkit, I saw them play after us that day, and they were fucking great. I'm not a huge Limp Bizkit fan, but they were great, you know? And then later on, when everything went wrong, because water bottles cost like $6 or $10 there, and it was fucking 100 degrees out. Water bottles are $6 or $10, which is too much. And they're not changing the porta potties. So people got pissed and knocked them over. And there was like a 100-yard wide lake of shit and piss off to the left side of the stage. And you could see people getting more and more unhappy. And I mean, everybody knows what happened eventually. And they blamed it on the bands. The organizers got up on their high horse and got all self-righteous and blamed Limp Bizkit, blamed the Chili Peppers. But all I could think of was, no, we're only having the most aggro bands on every night at the end of the show. That's your plan. You going to blame the bands for playing their set? There was that Limp Bizkit song called Wreck Shit or Wreck Some Stuff. I can't remember what the name is.
Break Stuff.
Yeah, Break Stuff. You know, and like, so they're going to play their song. You're the one who booked them. This is their set. These are their songs. You can't blame it on them. And those guys just got up on this high horse and blamed the bands. And I remember thinking, that is the fucking most cowardly thing I've ever seen. Just take fucking responsibility. It was your thing. I don't think the Chili Peppers passed out the candles. You know, like, you get people something, you ask them to light it on fire, and then you get pissed when they light things on fire. I mean, no, it's not great, but like, who charged $10 for the waters? And who fucking let that lake of shit and piss go out there? They put people in this terrible position, and then they blame the bands. But man, it was their plan. They're the ones who wanted to have this big, raucous fist in the air fest at the end of every night when everyone's tired. I don't know. It made me so angry. I don't mind telling you, but I didn't want to go on TV and just rip people. Yeah. But those organizers, man, it was the most cynical thing I've ever seen. And people got hurt. And it was entirely their fault. And they blamed it on the bands. And I thought that was fucking cowardly.
Yeah, it was crazy. I take it, when you finished your set, did you just leave?
We stayed for a while afterwards. Because we watched some more bands play. You know, we're kind of music geeks. So we stayed. And then we left the next day, which was the third day. But I was dating this girl. I had been, I don't know if we were dating anymore, who was an MTV news girl, Serena Altschul. And she called me panicking. I was in the back of the bus and we were just leaving town the next afternoon. And she called me in a panic from the top of one of those towers because they were shaking the tower, trying to break it. And she was up at the top of it, you know, and like, yeah, those are stupid people. But you want to put on a concert, that concert is your responsibility. As a promoter, as an organizer, it's your fucking fault and your responsibility. And to blame it on the bands when people got hurt, you know, and I find that very, very, very cynical. But like, I didn't want to be on the shows because I don't want to be on television ripping people.
If you were to recommend one of your albums to someone who had never heard Counting Crows before, what album would you choose to start with?
I don't know. I don't have a real opinion other than that. I mean, they're like my kids. I don't know. I would say there's pieces, you know, I would want everyone to hear Palisades Park. Like the album the band always wants to play stuff from is This Desert Life, because they're really quirky, weird songs, and the guys always want to play I Wish I Was a Girl, High Life, St. Robinson and His Cadillac Dream. They're just such unique, weird songs. And they've really I find them really interesting still. I don't know though. Maybe This Desert Life. Maybe, honestly, I could name every record for different reasons. You know, this Saturday Nights and Sunday Mornings is such a visceral thematic thing. So is Satellites that way. Just the recovery from like what we went through on the first album was so powerful for recovering the Satellites. But Hard Candy's got such emotional songs, and the arrangements are so fucking good on that record. I don't know. I might recommend Underwater Sunshine because we play some songs by a lot of great artists, and I'd want you to get turned on to those artists. It's hard for me to say. They're like, you know, which kid do you like better?
Yeah. Well, thanks very much. I had loads more questions, but with so little time. So I appreciate you taking the time. And I hope the rest of the tour goes well. And I look forward to hearing the second EP somewhere down the line. But at the moment, I'm enjoying the current one. It's absolutely fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Tell everybody to come out. Come down to 3 Arena and see us, because it's going to be great to get back playing again over there. It's been a while, and it's a venue that we absolutely love. Although I'm still pissed they took the bar out.
And you have to come to Belfast again.
I would love to. I mean, I wish we could just play more places. I want to go down to Cork. We haven't played a show in Cork in ages. You know?
No, it'll be good to have you back in Ireland.
Yeah. Thank you.